At 60, your skin, hair, and joints are quietly asking for one thing: raw material to rebuild. Now imagine the human body not as something breaking down, but as a living construction site that never closes. Every wrinkle, every stiff joint, every thinning strand of hair is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that the builders inside you are running out of supplies. Collagen is the steel and scaffolding of that construction site. Yet after 60, the body no longer manufactures it efficiently. No matter how many powders we stir into water, what it needs are foods that speak the language of human biology, not marketing. Aging skin and joints are not collapsing in the way we are often told. They are quietly starving. And that starvation happens at the microscopic level long before it becomes visible in the mirror or painful in the knees. Inside every square inch of skin and every smooth layer of cartilage, there are living cells that behave less like stone and more like gardeners, constantly removing old fibers and planting new ones. When we are young, those gardeners are flooded with raw materials, especially the amino acids that become collagen. So repair happens faster than wear. After 60, the body does not suddenly lose the desire to rebuild. It loses the steady supply of what it needs to do the work. The result is thinning skin, fragile joints, and hair that feels like it has lost its memory. Not because the body is broken, but because the internal warehouses are empty. Collagen is often spoken about as if it were a cosmetic ingredient. But biologically, it is more like the fabric of the body itself. It holds skin cells together, keeps joints gliding smoothly, and gives hair its strength. Every day, enzymes break down old collagen fibers and recycle their parts. But aging changes this balance. Inflammation rises quietly, digestion becomes less efficient, and protein absorption weakens. Even if someone eats the same amount of protein as they did at 40, fewer usable building blocks actually reach the tissues. This is why the body can look like it is shrinking, drying, and stiffening all at once. A pattern that feels mysterious, but is really a simple shortage. When the skin loses collagen, it does not just wrinkle. It loses its ability to hold water, which is why it feels thinner and more fragile. When joints lose collagen, they do not just ache. They lose the smooth cushioning that once made movement silent and effortless. And when hair loses collagen support at the root, it does not merely fall out, it grows back finer, because the structure beneath it has weakened. These changes all trace back to one quiet truth. The cells responsible for renewal are still there, but they are working with less and less material. This is why many people over 60 feel like their body is aging faster than their mind. The brain still sends the same instructions for repair, but the tissues no longer receive enough of the molecules that turn those instructions into reality. It is similar to having a brilliant architect with no bricks. No matter how perfect the design, the building cannot rise without supplies. And in the body, those supplies come from what we digest, absorb, and deliver through the blood to every living tissue. Understanding this shifts how we see aging. It is not an inevitable collapse, but a nutritional and biochemical bottleneck. When the right building blocks return, skin cells plump, joints glide, and hair regains density, not because time reversed, but because the body was finally fed what it had been missing. Bone broth does something that most modern supplements cannot, because it respects the way the human body actually absorbs and uses collagen. When collagen is locked inside powders or tablets, the digestive system must first break it apart, a task that becomes less efficient with age as stomach acid weakens and enzyme production slows. Bone broth arrives already gently broken down through hours of simmering, turning tough connective tissue into small, bioavailable amino acids that slip through the intestinal wall with far less resistance. This is why the body seems to recognize bone broth immediately, as if it were speaking a native biological language that has been forgotten in processed foods. Inside that warm liquid are glycine, proline, and hydroxyproline, the three primary building blocks of human collagen. These are not just nutrients floating in isolation. They arrive surrounded by minerals, gelatin, and trace elements that stabilize them and guide them toward tissue repair. When these molecules enter the bloodstream, they are drawn toward areas of wear like joints, skin, and tendons, because those tissues are constantly sending out chemical signals that say repair is needed. Bone broth does not force collagen into the body. It answers a call that has been waiting for years. In aging joints, cartilage thins because its collagen matrix has been slowly eroded by mechanical stress and low-grade inflammation. Bone broth supplies the raw amino acids that cartilage cells need to rebuild that matrix, allowing the joint surface to become smoother and more resilient again. This is why many older people notice that stiffness softens and movement feels less brittle after weeks of regular broth. Not because painkillers are at work, but because the tissue itself is changing. Skin responds in a similar way. When collagen fibers in the dermis weaken, the skin loses firmness and hydration. Glycine from bone broth supports the formation of new collagen strands that weave beneath the surface, giving the skin a subtle lift and improving its ability to retain moisture. The effect is not dramatic like a cosmetic procedure, but it is deep because it is structural rather than superficial. Hair follicles also benefit because they sit in collagen-rich tissue that anchors each strand in place. And when that support strengthens, hair becomes less fragile and more willing to grow thick. There is also a quieter effect that happens in the nervous system. Glycine acts as a calming neurotransmitter, reducing stress signals that otherwise accelerate collagen breakdown through cortisol. When stress drops, repair rises. This creates a gentle loop where the body feels safer. Inflammation settles, and the conditions for tissue rebuilding improve. Bone broth therefore works not only as a nutrient source, but as a signal to the entire system that it is time to heal rather than defend. In this way, bone broth becomes more than food. It becomes a form of biological conversation, telling aging cells that the materials for renewal have finally arrived and that it is safe to start rebuilding again. Wild fatty fish with the skin left on offers a rare combination that aging tissues quietly crave, because it delivers both the structure and the protection that collagen needs in order to survive inside the body. The skin of the fish contains natural collagen and gelatin, which dissolve during cooking into small peptides that the digestive system can absorb with ease. These peptides travel through the bloodstream to areas of wear, especially the skin, joints, and connective tissue, where they become the raw threads from which new fibers are woven. But without protection, these new fibers would be quickly damaged by inflammation, which is one of the most powerful forces of aging. This is where the omega-3 fats in wild fish play their deeper role. They are not simply heart-healthy oils. They are molecular peacekeepers that quiet inflammatory signals throughout the body. Inflammation is like a slow-burning fire that breaks down collagen faster than it can be rebuilt, making skin thin, joints stiff, and hair weak. Omega-3 South help turn down this fire, allowing the collagen coming from the fish skin and the body's own production to remain intact long enough to become part of living tissue. When these two elements arrive together, collagen and omega-3 fats, the body experiences something close to balance. Joints regain their smooth, internal surfaces because cartilage is no longer being eroded as quickly. Skin becomes more elastic because its collagen framework is no longer being constantly attacked. Hair follicles sit in healthier tissue, which supports stronger, thicker growth. There is also a metabolic harmony in this pairing, because omega-3 fats improve blood flow to small vessels in the skin and joints, making sure that collagen-building nutrients actually reach their destination. This is why wild fatty fish does not just supply material. It creates an internal environment where that material can finally do its quiet, patient work of rebuilding the body from within. Egg yolks carry a kind of quiet intelligence that aging tissues deeply depend on, because within their golden center are sulfur-containing compounds and fat-soluble nutrients that activate the enzymes responsible for stitching collagen fibers together. Collagen is not simply poured into the body and left to float in place. It must be carefully woven, cross-linked, and stabilized so it can become strong enough to support skin, joints, and hair. Without these enzymatic helpers, collagen strands remain loose and fragile, which is why skin can still wrinkle and joints can still ache, even when enough protein is present. Sulfur is a key part of this process because it forms the bridges between collagen molecules that give them tensile strength. Egg yolks provide this sulfur in a form that the body easily recognizes and uses, allowing connective tissue to become more resilient and elastic rather than brittle. Alongside sulfur, egg yolks also contain vitamin A and vitamin D, which guide skin cells in how to grow and repair themselves, making sure that new collagen is laid down in an organized and functional way instead of a chaotic one. There is also choline in egg yolks, a nutrient that supports cell membrane integrity and nerve signaling. Healthy nerves quietly influence tissue repair by controlling blood flow and cellular communication. So when choline levels are strong, the entire network that delivers collagen-building materials works more smoothly. Hair follicles, which are among the most metabolically active structures in the body, are especially sensitive to this kind of support. When their surrounding collagen is properly cross-linked and nourished, hair grows thicker and sheds less easily. In this way, egg yolks do not simply add nutrients. They enable a biochemical choreography in which collagen fibers become tightly woven into living tissue, giving aging skin, hair, and joints the internal strength they have been slowly losing. When the right foods come together, the body shifts out of survival mode and into a state of rebuilding, because cells respond not only to what is eaten, but to the overall biochemical environment that those foods create. In aging tissues, the dominant signal is often stress, driven by inflammation, oxidative damage, and nutrient scarcity, which tells the body to conserve and defend rather than to repair. When bone broth, wild fatty fish, and egg yolks enter the system together, they change that signal. They supply collagen building blocks, anti-inflammatory fats, and enzymatic activators all at once, creating a molecular message that says it is safe to invest energy in renewal. Cells in the skin begin to hold on to water again as their collagen framework becomes denser and more organized. Joint cartilage, which once felt thin and fragile, gains a smoother, more cushioned surface as new fibers are laid down and protected from breakdown. Hair follicles, surrounded by healthier connective tissue and fed by improved blood flow, produce strands that are stronger and less likely to fall away. None of this feels dramatic in the moment, but over weeks it becomes quietly unmistakable as the body regains a sense of internal integrity. This kind of renewal cannot be forced by a single nutrient or a powdered supplement, because human biology works through networks rather than isolated chemicals. Collagen needs fats to shield it, enzymes to stabilize it, and a calm immune system to allow it to survive. When these conditions are met through whole foods, the body does not have to choose between fighting damage and building tissue. It can do both with less strain. In this state, aging becomes less of a decline and more of a slower, steadier rhythm, where tissues are no longer losing ground faster than they can recover, allowing the skin to feel more resilient, the joints to move with greater ease, and the hair to grow with a strength that reflects a deeper internal balance.